Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Maria.
How are you?
I'm perfectly fine. Great.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for your time.
Nice to meet you too. I'm recording this because some people might be interesting. If there will be interesting parts, I would share it on Facebook or YouTube or things like that.
Okay, great.
Cool.
I don't know if you have any question, like first, like for you to know something. I don't know. I always start my interviews like that, like for people, if they want to know something.
No.
particular.
Like I've talked with Vlad.
Mm-hmm.
He told me that he has a really great experience with you, and his assessment was that you are totally cool. So he is good in assessing people usually.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. That's very nice to know.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, in the first place, I have lots of questions. Maybe they're general, so it's for you like to speak freely. First, and also this is something that I speak with everyone. If I ask something that you don't want to answer for any reason, you just tell me this is not your business, and I'm like, okay.
Yes, okay, cool.
Feel freely to say that. I will try not to ask anything strange, but feel free for doing that. I wanted to start like this, asking, like in retrospective, how do you feel that being like the son of Shiva made like your growing up or your life different than maybe people that grew with another parents, with another, I don't know, like professions or another characters? How would you define?
It really determined my life. I was really always always interested in making my father happy or things like that, like impressive and things like that. And I started to practice techniques. Like I participated in first Gnostic Intensive when I was just 12 years old. But it really a big influence on my life was when he started to practice and create self-improvement techniques. These techniques were really something that really changed my life. I am really like, this is essential part of my life. Like it is something that makes my life really nice. I really enjoy my life because of that. Like when you have ability to really choose what kind of experiences you will have, that for me it is probably the greatest thing that one can have in his life or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say that it was characteristic in many ways, in many different ways, but that part is something that I'm really grateful. Yeah, this is something that is, I believe, the best benefit that one can have in his life or something like that.
Then, okay, this is a little harder question.
Okay.
That's
yeah. You can if you want, you can ask for me to expand or things like that. Like you can be really cool about how you conduct yourself. I don't have any problem. The thing that you said, if there is something that I don't want to answer, I wouldn't answer something that I don't want to answer.
I know.
Something like that.
Sorry, it's a cultural thing. Latin America all the time, very polite, very.
This is really good. But I want to tell you that you can really conduct everything in the way that you find comfortable.
Great. This is like the question that I want to ask. That's wonderful that it was very good experience. But as far as I've been reading in the press, like sometimes like the press and some parts of society are not that open towards certain practices, and they say lots of weird things. So I was wanting to know if you sometimes felt uncomfortable because of like these things that they say, these random accusations, if you were, I don't know, like scared, uncomfortable. How did he felt about this, about some people don't accepting that or being scared or those kind of reactions? How would you react? Like how did you react this?
Like in when I was a kid, Serbia or Yugoslavia was a communist country, and they were really strict about ideology. So you really couldn't freely practice things like that because they consider all these things to be a little bit subversive. Like they basically, you are doing some things that might be politically problematic. And me as a kid, I didn't felt too much trouble about that. But I know that Živorad did have problems. Like we had some periods in which he had some kind of strange attacks from press and things like that. But in the end, I don't know, it was police state, and it seems like, we are not sure, but it seems that for some reason they were monitoring his activities in a distant way, because they didn't make problems for him. It seems like probably they had some kind of spies in the organizational thing. He had few different kinds of organization types. First one was, at the beginning, it was something like association or club for people who are interested. This was something that was acceptable in that country. After some time, he transformed it into religious organization like Eclesia Gnostica Alba or White Gnostic Church. And for me, the general understanding of that situation is that probably there were some people who were spies, and this is the way they control it. We didn't have, as family, we didn't have some big problems with his work. We had something like, there were some moments when we had problems with people who were families of people who were practicing with my father, would feel that this is some kind of sect, which in a sense, it was like small religious just group. It is a sect. So basically families were sometimes had really problematic feelings. We have some people who were calling us on the phone and threatening us and something like that. But I cannot say that it was a really big problem. It was something that was there, but it wasn't, I would say, it wasn't as bad as one might expect it.
Ah, great. I'm sad that you had to go through this, but it's good that it wasn't that bad.
I really don't perceive myself as a victim in that sense. So my family, I had a nice childhood, really.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, if I may ask, how? Sorry, I'm a little bit shy.
Okay, cool. I understand.
So, have you spoke with him, or how would you define, or how do you think that he made the decision of dissolve the Eclesia Gnostica Alba and change into spiritual technology? Do you think it was just a matter of the change of the approach, or there was also some other reason that, what triggered that change?
I believe that main reason for that change was, basically, there are two main reasons. And to really understand that, you really need to understand basic techniques that he was using in Eclesia Gnostica Alba. Basically, the church was based on Gnostic intensive as a technique. This is mystical technique. This is technique for experiencing oneself, for having experience of gnosis or direct truth, enlightenment, and just for that. So basically, for example, if you participated in Gnostic intensive, one of the first things that you would be said is that you are not there to improve yourself. You are not there to be more communicative. You are not there to be more happy or whatever. You are there to find or to experience direct truth or direct truth of the self, or to have enlightenment. And if you pay attention to that, you will have, if your whole organization is based on that, you will have more and more of these experiences. And they were organizing lot of basic Gnostic intensive, a lot of longer ones, which are basically meditation sessions and things like that. And all these members of the church, they were having these kind of experiences. They were deeper and deeper on mystical side. What is also true is that by doing that, you are getting more and more in harmony with yourself, and you are having some improvements of your character. But this is not the main idea and main reason why you are doing that, but this is some kind of by chance result that has to be there, because basically the nature of the technique is such that you are becoming more and more close to yourself by eliminating your emotional charge, and that really gives you improvements in all areas of your life as a secondary result. As long as that was the main technique, you are getting deeper and deeper in one direction. You're getting closer and closer to what and who you really are. There is a limitation of technique, and limitation is that after you can get to the state that they called stable state. The nature of the enlightenment experience or gnosis experience is that you are having effort to experience yourself. You are in that effort, you have parts of the technique that are eliminating emotional charge that basically separates you from your true self. And as amount of charge is getting more and more narrow, you are getting the state when you can have experience. When it is really narrow, you have enlightenment experience. After some time, you need to integrate that experience. But the fact is that it is called in some of the schools Satori experience. It is basically, it is just one moment experience of self. And after that, you basically integrate that experience and things are getting like, but after some time, you are, in a sense, your mental masses are basically accumulating again. Like you have experience, but after that, like 10 minutes later or 2 hours later, you don't have experience. You have memory of experience. You have rationalization of experience, but you are not in Satori experience anymore after some time. But if you are doing a lot of that, like they did, you are getting closer and closer to something which they called stable state. It means really that in any moment you are in enlightenment experience in regard to some topics, or basically in regard to me topic, meaning that you don't. So basically, you cannot work anymore on who am I, what am I, or different like these basic Zen questions that they were using in that. And because of that, really, after some time, you really cannot practice anymore. You cannot, basically, in most spiritual schools, natural result of that is that people are starting to coach other people about that. So basically, they're becoming teachers. So they becoming teachers. And a lot of people in the church, they were giving intensives themselves to other people. But in a way, you really need to change. Like this is a limitation of the technique. And in a sense, I believe that my father started to get interested in technical points of different self-improvement techniques. And this is something that became interesting for him, and not work with intensive. It felt like this is a completed cycle for him. And I believe that this is one of the reasons why he went from EGA to I don't know, teaching people different techniques.
Oh, great. Great. That's very nice. Very clear explanation. I was wondering about that.
Great.
Also, about especially I'm going to ask you maybe a little bit more about the EGA, because it's like the thing that I have like less material, because of course, like I have some books, but yeah. I'm a little bit, this is personal, I'm a little bit intrigued about Algonian language. Like how they it was like this experience like in the enlightenment that people started like receiving it, and that was, if I don't understand bad, it's like there like any systematization like of that? It was like actively used, or there was just like concepts that they were like people channeling?
It was more of the second one, like more of the channeling part. They had some of the experiences that were common to some members of the groups of the lives on previous lives or in different universes and things like that. And that thing with language was basically that Algolian language was story about living together on that algal planet or something like that. They didn't use it as language, it was like more they were creating it as some kind of dictionary of the words and things like that. It is like I didn't have experience. I was never a member of. I had never been a member of EGA. So I'm talking about one like from a person who was outside of that. So it seems like it looks more like some kind of interesting decor that they could that was characteristic for few of them. They have experiences of that, and that was something that I believe that made the whole group more integrated and stronger or something like that. It was more channeling thing than anything else. They were talking about some of people who were really talented for that. They were having ideas about it or cognitions or realizations about that, and they share that, and it seems like a nice cohesive thing in a group or something like that.
Great. So then like this triggers me another question, that is then like in this, I'm sorry that I'm asking like a lot, but so then I'm trying to understand like now this switch between EGA and spiritual technologies, that it's really clear. But so then how to mouth this, what is the role then of this like more religious side, like that you saw when you were practicing with your father and everything? For example, what's the role of Ivas after like all this experience that he wrote in his book? Like what happened then, like with Ivas?
These experiences are basically pretty much separated and characteristic, absolutely correct, connected to EGA part. It was intelligence, channeled in intelligence that they like experienced as members of the church, experienced as a, I don't know, intelligence that guides whole group. Shiva created EGA by being initiated by Michael Berthiaud. It is one mystic that lived that time in Chicago. I don't know if he's alive now or not. I don't know really. I think that he is still alive. He was initiated in that, and basically of Ivas was also part of Berthiaud's experiences and things. So they had really strong experiences in some of intensives of identification with intelligence. Like my perception of that is that it is like when you are really deep in experiences of the self, you can really identify, you can freely take different viewpoints. You are disidentified of your standard beingness, and because of that you can identify with, you can get and stay stably for some time in different viewpoints. And when you have a really interesting story like that, then it is really easy to channel different things or experience universe or your own self and things like that from that viewpoint. This is it was a really important part of that whole EGA story or something like that. But if you would ask me how that influenced their work, other than interesting experiences they had when they were deep and really open for that, I wouldn't know what to tell you about that.
Mm-hmm. Great. So you feel like personally, like, how do you say? He made like really a cut, like between the EGA and spiritual technology. Like it was like an abrupt cut, or did he like still like had memories? He had contact with the old members. He was like still lingering on that era, or the cut was definitive and he was like, now okay, now I'm like focusing on this.
Like when you have a group of 90 people, you have all the trouble that you have in any family or any country or whatever. You have dynamics of the group in there, and you have different members of the group talking bad about others. They created some kind of rules, what you can do and what you cannot do, that you shouldn't badmouth other people from the group and things like that, and that you shouldn't gossip and things like that. But when you have 90 people, you have all like social dynamics problem in there. And they were dealing with that somehow. But I believe as soon as my father became, like when his interest got to that other part of that spiritual technology and things like that, he wasn't really interested very much in dealing with that. He became like bored with that or irritated by that or things like that. Okay, you are not so mature as you should be and things like that. And in one, like they were having different problems with that, but in one moment he cut it and said, okay, I don't want to do that, and he dissolves the church.
Great. What else can I ask?
Yeah.
Did you? Sorry that I didn't like. If you did, and I'm very nervous. I'm so
Cool.
sorry.
I'm totally cool.
Yeah, I was like wondering. I wanted to interview your father or you for a long time, so now it's happening, and I'm all like,
okay, cool.
Did you ever like channel technique yourself? Like I wrote that your sister Ivana, she channeled some things, books, but I don't know if you channeled like any kind of technique or that, if you developed something, and if you did, how, like in which approach, like more from an intellectual approach on thinking about it, or more like it came to you as a revelation, or if that happened.
All things that I developed are basically developed. I'm a mathematician professionally. I'm a mathematician, and I'm really approaching things pretty much in that way. But all things that I created are really working on myself. I was practicing like most of the things, like in my life, most of the things that I have done were things that were processing myself or using different techniques on my own self. So most of the techniques that I create were really made and improved step by step from other things that I was doing. So it is, for me, it was absolutely logical thing, like logical and experiential. I would use something, I would try to use it for some other, for example, for some other topic that I am interested in, and I wasn't able. So I tried, and in the end, I improved it somehow. So I cannot say that I have channeled anything.
How is Ivan's approach? Do you say it's the same? Or...
I never talked with Ivan about that, but I processed her myself a lot, and she processed me. So I would say that she's pretty much doing the same things. When I said that, like one of the benefits of Živorad as a person, as somebody who he is, that he was really interested in new techniques. He traveled a lot. It was not difficult for him to say, okay, I'm going to Mexico because that spiritual coach seems to be really, and then be a little bit disappointed with that, but it wouldn't make him that he don't want to do it next time again. So he was really, really hungry for new techniques. And that was for me really absolutely beneficial, because in a way I am really lazy. And I say, if it wasn't for him, I would probably have one technique in my life and I would use it whole life, not thinking about anything else. But he was really like that. Next time he's going to New York and he find that these people are really boring. Like it is totally not really valuable experience for him. But again, he's able to go next time and do it again.
That's very interesting.
Yes. This is really beneficial for all of us around him.
Okay, now I was wondering how in general, like all of you, like that you practice like all of these practices, how do you see or how do you portray, how you say, like like the process of aging, of illness, and that kind of stuff? Like, how do you feel like that? Do the techniques like somehow can help people going through that process to accept like the end of life? So do you think that the approach of somebody that works with these techniques is better than somebody that doesn't? This one personal.
Yes, like I would say that I felt that my father was really in harmony with himself when he died, or something like that. He didn't have problem with that. Techniques, I believe that these techniques that we are using could be really beneficial for your health and your body state and things like that. Because I believe that when you have problems with your body, in most cases, they have two separate parts. One is objective health problem that there might exist. But the second is the way I experience it, or I think that, and feel that this is pretty much some kind of activation of different memories, your own as spiritual being, or even maybe the memories from your body that are really making big part of the problem. For example, when you have toothache, there are two parts. You have some process in your tooth, and you also have, I believe, memory of different previous pains connected, somehow activated by that. And you have attitude which is activated also. It may be like really like feeling like a victim. This thing is torturing me. Or you might feel anger. When the fuck will it stop, or something like that. And you may think that this is logical reaction to your state, that you would say, okay, it is natural thing to feel like this when I am having toothache. But if you process it, you will find that these are two totally different things. And in a lot of situations, big part of the problem, I believe, is psychological, or basically psychosomatic. Psychosomatic, but that doesn't mean that you should go to the dentist, that you should really, but when you eliminate psychosomatic, like in a lot of situations, you will find that big part disappears with your emotional reaction to that. I coached people when they were in that kind of problem, that in some of situations, you might find totally unbelievable things. Like I worked with a person who was a doctor, and he had a problem with his spine, and this is discus hernia, and he has pain with that. And in some moment we are using technique. Okay, now people see how technique can be used for your body states, and he is working on that. And in the end, he starts with the pain that he chronically has. In the end, it totally disappears, and he's trying to activate it, and he's laughing, and he says, okay, this is not possible. I know all the things that are happening there. This cannot be. I know that there is a discus and it is pressed, and it cannot be that it doesn't hurt me. But actually, this is, of course, when psychosomatic part is dominant in that. There are some parts that, like, you need to understand that there are limitations in that. That as much as your mind is like influencing your body, also influences your mind. So you can eliminate some of the things, but you cannot eliminate others. I have multiple sclerosis, MS. So I process it in different ways, and I really don't feel that I have any problem with that. But people around me are really nervous about it, and they say, "Okay, you're walking worse than you walked 2 years ago or 5 years ago." I don't feel that it is a problem for me. It's not a problem for me. So there are limitations. Like I'm not able to really run now as I might want. But actually, I really don't want to run. But that is a fact. You should always be really aware of limitations. But my experience shows me that in a lot of situations, psychosomatic element is much bigger than most people perceive. So that by doing systematically effective techniques on and keeping yourself in a good state in regard to situations that you're experiencing in your body, you can really improve your health or body state. Sometimes by directly, but sometimes by eliminating inner conflicts, you might do the things that you need to do, basically change the doctor or go to a different type of doctor, things like that.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but like one of the things that is most interesting for me is that how identified we are with our reactions toward body state that we are experiencing. That kind of things, that you might be angry and you perceive it as totally natural thing to be irritated and angry about that. But actually, in a lot of situations, this is the cause of body problem that you're having. If the main part of the problem is psychosomatic, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and if not, you're just making it worse, though, because you have the problem and the reaction.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, and then I wanted to ask, there is something that, I don't know, that you particularly want to share, or that you think that it wasn't really understood about your parents, about your father's job? There's something that you think that general people didn't kind of grasp, that they had like a different impression, or I don't know.
I believe that misunderstanding in that area is a normal result of situation. You really cannot understand other person truly.
Yeah.
And in a situation like that, people need somebody on whom they will project their ideas about perfect behavior in that specific area. And this is what they are doing. So basically, people need somebody to be their guru or teacher or something like that. That other person is always a person, he learned how to behave like a teacher, but once you start experiencing it, you really perceive it as funny. But actually, people really need that. Like they need that. It is, I believe, wrong to correct them in that. I experience, like my father much more, probably because his situation is a little bit more turned in that direction. But I personally, when coaching some workshops, I was experiencing things like that people think that I can read their minds. And they don't believe me when I say, oh, no, this is total nonsense. No, but no, you know what I'm thinking. No. But this is a natural thing of that social situation. This is like archetypical situation. Like you have a teacher and you can student. Even if you don't accept the role of the teacher, that the student can make you his teacher regardless of that. And this is like when you said, are there some things about Shiva that are not understood? Yes, like they are all, like most of the things are not understood, but they must be not understood. There is nothing there to to clarify about.
Great, great. That's very interesting. Okay, I'm kind of ran out of questions. I mean, my curiosity is there, but I don't now. I prepared like all these questions, and I don't know what else to ask because I want some things like you maybe answered me. If I was like asking if you remember like of the EGA, even though that you were a child, you told me that you weren't. So yeah, I think that's for now all the questions that I have. I don't know if you want to tell me something else or
no, I don't have anything that I would like to tell you, but like this is like
yeah, of course I am the one asking, but just in case.
Cool.
Okay, so thank you so much. And I don't know if I will be able, like, if someday, because I mean, I will have to write a whole thesis about your father, so it's going to be lots of work, and probably there will be other topics that I was approaching. Now I'm just like telling you, I don't want to steal you more time, but now I was asking about all these misunderstandings and that kind of things, because I'm working like on a paper that it's about the press and how, like in the 80s and the 90s, and I'm making a comparison towards now, how they treat like every kind of religious or spiritual practice that they don't know. And I knew that they have this very stigmatizing language, etc., etc. I could read that by the papers, but I didn't know how you lived it, like how you experienced it.
Okay, if this is basically the main part of the thesis that you're writing, this is, I believe, that is really absolutely truth. There is absolute difference, like worldwide, about that. Like not only in Serbia as communist country, I told you about that, but actually like all around the world, it was perceived in totally different way. Most of the things about self-improvement, different aspects of religion and things like that, or other parts of basically irrational behavior, things like that, it is absolutely different now than it was like 40 years ago or than it was 20 years ago. It is becoming really some kind of popular culture almost, like it is. So it is really different than it was when Shiva started doing that. He wrote his first book in 1970. And in that moment, you didn't have any other publisher or writer who was writing about it. You would have some obscure books about something like how to use magic to force a girl to like you or something like that. But these were really written in a way which is really for people who are not, I would say, not very clever or things like that. But he was only person in whole country, it was 20 million people country, that he was writing about that. And his first book was about yoga. It was yoga, or basically psychic training of yogis and things like that. His second was like basically about magic, or basically Western magic tradition, like of Western Europe and things like that. So it is, I can say that it is really different than now. It's absolutely different situation about that. Then now you have like Facebook group for every possible interest that you might have, and this is totally normal thing. And I believe this is really nice thing about mankind, or something like that.
Yes, that's why I chose him for my thesis.
And his situation is really maybe even extreme about that, because like socialist country like that, or communist country in that moment, it was really something that was pretty much uphill battle for in that moment. But he was able to deal with that in a way maybe he was lucky, I don't know.
Great. Yeah, he was like a pioneer.
Yes, in that area he was really pioneer.
Yeah, that's why I want to write about this, because it's an important part. I don't know, of course I'm not Serbian, I don't have much experience, I've been only 10 months here, but I think like it's a very important contribution, like to the spiritual and religious like landscape Serbian, that's why.
Yes, like he is a psychologist, and really quickly after he started to write his books, he had a lot he received a lot of fire from Association of Psychologists here in Serbia and things like that. Like, it was there are two things. First, like era changed, and second one, communist country. When in the communist country, everybody is perceived as an enemy, like possible enemy or something like that. If you have group of 90 people who are meeting 4 times a month, they are really suspicious. And the secret police is basically having an eye on you. But and this is not exaggeration; it is really something that happened.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. Yeah, according to that logic, yeah, it makes sense. Great. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Like, really.
If you want, like when you are a little bit more in writing this, we can arrange one more time, or if you want, or something like that. So like a few months later, we can do it again.
Yes, and I promise that then I will have other topics like for the new.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, but it was very nice. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure for me too.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. Can I like ask you if you can send me then the recording, at least just the voice part, so then I can like.
Yeah. I will send you whole link to the recording. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.